All right. So do you think there is such a thing as an American culture? We see this sort
Oh,
of thing as when you think of Japan or Korea or other countries, you can kind of identify certain characteristics that you would say that's Korean or that's Japanese or that's French. But when it comes to America, there's a lot of confusion on that topic.
yeah, I think there is a distinctive American culture, but we don't recognize it. I like to tell my students to use the analogy, a fish in a fishbowl does not realize that it is wet. It's surrounded by water. It doesn't recognize what dry is versus what wet is, and so we don't recognize our accents. We don't recognize our culture as compared to maybe something else. But I do see what you mean. I know what you're driving at. America has got a cornucopia of cultures kind of mixed together in the melting pot.
All of these things that we're saying are good and true, but it still kind of leaves us with this question, that is there something that we could say is consistent? I've heard it from people in other countries who say, well, America, I just can't figure out exactly what is American culture. Is it
Mm.
hamburgers and hot dogs? I've kind of tried to tally up a list of things things.
Distinctively American things?
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
for example, I mean, the way people dress in this country. If you
Mm.
compare us to the way a lot of people dress in various occasions in Europe, people would say we're quite informal. I mean,
Mm.
wearing blue jeans is like primary pants of choice. Things like American football, which distinguishes itself from what other people call football around the world, being soccer or
That's a big one, I think.
yeah,
Yes,
that's
we stick out like a sore thumb when it comes to that. We have very little attention paid to adult soccer,
yeah,
whereas in American football, there's a great deal of attention paid to that and
enthusiasm, right?
enthusiasm. I don't think that more so than any other country in the world. Baseball is celebrated a great deal in Japan, even though it was invented in America. But it's kind of like the whole world was watching soccer while everybody in America is watching the Super Bowl.
In other countries, people do things like negotiating prices when you go to a store,
Yeah,
or you don't find that as commonly in America as you do in other countries,
this is
or
true.
the culture of tipping, in a restaurant.
Yes.
Things like certain holidays, Memorial Day and Halloween, being with its dress-up costumes, even though that didn't originate in the United States, it has become sort of an American phenomenon, and then these holidays represent something distinctly American.
To sum up, I think American culture can be identified on our coin, the three expressions that are found on the back of our coin. I'm borrowing this from Dennis Prager, and I'm sure you've heard this too, right? E
Yes,
pluribus unum, in God we trust, and the third one?
liberty.
Liberty, right.
Dennis Prager, I mean, he would probably make a clear distinction between culture and values.
Mm,
He would say something like, the values are the things that are more permanent, relatively speaking, because they are the things that define what Americans in general believe or what it is to be an American, whereas culture is always shifting. Tattoos, as we noticed in the last decade or 15 years, I guess, you see more and more and more people wearing them, and
mm,
in all parts of the body that are exposed.
yeah.
And so that would not be a value, but it would definitely be a cultural trend.
I agree. That's an important distinction. Yeah, values are something that's bedrock, foundational.
Our values as Americans influence our culture.
Hmm.
But I don't think culture influences our values. I think
Hmm.
it's the other way around.